Scott Hendrickson. I work for OIT here at VA Puget Sound. I've worked here since 2006. I actually started on a contract with the DoD and VA joint sharing project. So I got to see how things were done on the DoD side of the house. And then I ended up settling here on the VA side of the house. And I've been with IT on this local support and some national projects for about 19 years now. Let me go ahead and pitch it over to Fred. He'll introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Fred McCabe. I've been with the VA for almost 3 years. I'm also a veteran. I have a lot of aerospace background, as well as some of the VR, AR experience in the aerospace environment. And I've been supporting and working with Scott Hendrickson with VA Ventures, X Labs, and the special projects.
Thanks, Fred. So today we're going to talk about IT implementation of augmented reality and virtual reality at the VA. I'm going to start on slide 1 saying this isn't the solution. I'm not going to tell you the solution. I'm going to tell you my experience starting about 3 years ago. Because one important thing to know is at the VA, we have different levels, right? We have frontline customer support, and that's where I am working along with Fred. We support VA Puget Sound. We support our customers here. But then you've got region levels, you've got national levels. So yeah, if we went about 15 years ago and Dr. Ripley came to me and said, Scott, get VR working on the VA network. We had an environment where I could say, hey, we can do all IT things here. But in today's environment in the VA, it's not that easy. But we did get to give it a shot 3 years ago. We did have some success. I'm going to share that with everyone. Kick it over to slide 2. So I'm going to cover us, Fred and I, a little bit more about our roles. Again, that frontline support that Fred and I are at. Talk about the history of us trying to get VR on the VA network. And again, it goes back about 3 years. Hurdles we faced. I'm hoping that's what you're going to get out of my presentation today. You're going to see it's not that easy to get a device on the VA network. There's a process, and the process is always evolving. I'm going to talk about how we did it today, and who knows, a year from now they might say, oh, that's easy, just go to this intake and you'll get your VR headset on the VA network, no problem. But we're not there yet. And then I'm going to end with talking about where we're at today and what we're looking to for the future. So one disclosure, the VA doesn't endorse a headset. The VA doesn't have a favorite headset. They don't say, oh, if you're looking to do VR, go buy this. The VA has a contract with somebody, or no. There are all types of headsets that are being used at the VA. And they don't endorse a particular one. We're government agnostic, I think it's the term I've heard. So Fred and I, we work for the area manager here at VA Puget Sound. The area manager is the CIO. We work on IT special projects. So that actually gave us the freedom to explore something like, how the heck do we get VR headsets on the VA network? And what can we get out of VR? We work for end user operations. That's that frontline support I was talking about. We serve the users here at VA Puget Sound. That's the staff. We're at tier 2. There's tier 3, and that's a region level. And we become customers to tier 3. When Fred and I are working on some IT projects, often we have to follow VA policy, and hey, that requires support from tier 3. So you can kind of get a sense. It's not like other private hospitals where, hey, everything gets done by IT in-house. No, it's here at the VA, we have to work through levels. But Fred and I are lucky enough to have a sandbox network at Fort Lawton. Fort Lawton's a building in the Magnolia neighborhood, a few miles from the VA Puget Sound, the Seattle hospital. There, they gave us an IT playground where we had the ability to touch a air-gapped network, put VR on a network and see how it behaves, and kind of use that as a jumping point. Okay, how do we make this happen on the VA network? Went too far. So history here. 3 years ago, so we're working for the X Labs team. They're getting formed. They are looking at 3D printing. They're looking at any type of new technology. Fred and I are helping them get their 3D printers on the network, installing specialized software. There was also an interest in AR VR because, hey, that goes hand in hand with 3D printing. They came to Fred and I and said, hey, we'd love to have a VR meeting where folks, that are part of 3D printing for the VA can join a meeting with a VR headset and look at, in a virtual space, look at a 3D object, pass it back and forth, spin it around, talk about it. Also, the folks that are doing 3D printing, they wanted to be able to look at those 3D objects before they printed them. They wanted us to look at off-the-shelf products. So there was a lot of things we got to explore. And of course, everything requires internet access. Well, there's your first roadblock. I've got a VR headset. How do I get to the internet if I can't get it to the VA network? At the same time that we were looking at VR here at Puget Sound, here for folks at Fort Lawton, the X Labs team, a national team was getting formed. They are the VA Immersive group, and they are really the one-stop shop. If somebody calls me today, I'm working on all sorts of projects. I'm not specifically a VR specialist here. It's not all I spend my time on, but it's getting easier and easier to pitch people, my staff and customers that come to me, to the VA Immersive group. They have monthly meetings. They talk about headsets and where the VA is going. They talk about policy, but also they do talk about, hey, how do we get these things on the VA side of the house? Folks that join their meetings, they often ask, how can I connect my headset? Because those folks that are using the headsets, yes, there's folks all throughout the VA that are going out and buying headsets. You know what they're doing to connect them? They're connecting them to guest network or MiFi. They're not even touching the VA network. They can't. They don't have the support from their local IT. There's not, like I said, there's not yet a solution. There's no one-stop shop to say, hey, I've got a headset and I just like to get it on the network. Nope, they're connecting to MiFi. They're keeping patient data off those headsets. They're using the headsets for therapy. So no, they're not using them to look at radiological images. They're using them to treat PTSD. They're using them for rec therapy, things like that. And there's really widespread use at that level. And the VA Immersive team is great about supporting those folks, writing up papers on, hey, how do you use a VR headset? You're new to it. Here's the VA's approach to how you would use it. But again, no easy answer for how do you get that thing on the VA network. So that VA Immersive group, they support XR, which everyone knows is augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. There is their URL. I'm hoping there's going to be a way I can maybe share that to folks that are listening here at the VA. I believe that's an internal site, but you can learn more about the VA Immersive folks, and hey, you can pitch questions to them. So why can't we have VR headsets on the VA network? Well, VA blocks removable media to prevent loss of patient PHI. When the VA sees a headset that's maybe somebody thinks, I can connect this, it's just a thumb drive. It's removable storage. Those headsets are smart devices. They have storage. And hey, what if we put a bunch of patient data on them and they go missing? A lot of them aren't encrypted. A lot of them have too many vulnerabilities. And actually, that's something that we first started looking at was, how can we meet the VA level of security for some removable device to even approach saying, hey, we want to get these things on the VA network. So the players involved, the ISSOs, information system officers, information security system officers. We used to just call them ISOs, but they're the on-site folks at every VA. And I was telling Fred, they're the security cops. They walk around looking for, hey, is there anything that's here IT wise that shouldn't be? Maybe somebody put a server in their office and, hey, you're not supposed to do that. Or maybe somebody is using a VR headset with some patient data. No, don't do that. You guys got to know, no PHI on them. But the ISSOs are really who we first approach when we have some device that we say, what's our approach? How do we get this on the network? Our ISSOs are very overworked, and I think the answer they got was, "Hey, start looking. We're here to support you." But I think they pointed me at the next group, security engineering. They're a national group. They had an intake, and I was very excited to see somebody had done an intake for an Oculus. Oh, good. I'll do my Oculus 2 at the time. I'll do the Vive headset I'm looking at. I had a Pico. I learned, okay, so security engineering, are you going to get me where I can get this thing on the network? No. What their intake was is basically they helped define the device for me. They said, okay, Scott, tell us all about the operating system on that headset. Tell us how it can connect wirelessly. Does it use a thing called FIPS 140-2? That's a certain level of encryption that the VA requires for you to get on our network. So I did these intakes, and I got the Oculus 2 that I was first trying to get on the network defined. And they pointed me to the next group, another national group handling the enterprise risk analysis, the ERA folks. They had an intake. Okay, here's my intake. I think I pointed them at the security engineering that I had done. I want to do a risk analysis on this thing, this headset. And I want to create its own network for it. That's what you have to do here. You don't get to jump on the hospital network with any type of unique device. You actually need to get on something called a VLAN. That's a network within a network. But I had a showstopper right there. Well, are your devices going to connect wirelessly? Yes, I'd love to. The Oculus, it works wirelessly. Is it FIPS 140-2? Well, no. Oh, hey, that's going to take a little more work, Scott. Okay, well, what else could I do? What I discovered was I could create a system. I could not just have the headset, I could have it tethered with a USB cable to a specialized VA PC. Okay, this is my system I would like the enterprise risk analysis to look at. A VA PC, which connects to the network, and a headset that gets its network access through that PC. This is something that the Oculus offers, the Vive offers. They offer it with proprietary software, how you can use the computing power of your PC and the internet access of your PC to do things on your headset. So I went down that route. I looked at Oculus, Vive, Pico. They all had some form, some ability. Let's see, I don't know if I talk about it later here. I did also look at a headset that is old school now. They don't make them anymore, but it was called an HP Reverb. HP actually teamed up with Microsoft, and they said, hey, for our ability for a user to connect the headset to a PC, we want them to use something that's already built into Windows. That thing was called mixed reality. And you know what? I think I talk about that later. Let me go to the next slide here. Yes, I do talk about the Reverb there. So the Reverb uses mixed reality, part of the Windows operating system, a great specialized system that I went and did an ERA for. But I'm going to tell you some bad news on that one. Mixed reality that's part of Windows 10 is going away in Windows 11. Oh, well, what about the Reverb? They stopped making it. Shoot. That was the one that I really liked for demoing VR, for showing how I could actually get it on the network by using the specialized PC. So today, here we are, 3 years later. My ERAs were done. Other folks looked at them at other sites. They said, hey, we see you tethered a headset to a PC. We want to do something like that here. We've got a doctor that wants to get DICOM image files very easily and view them on a VR headset or something similar to that. My ERAs are still the only ones. We don't have any new ones. And rightfully so, because what you can do with an ERA, these are national. Even though I made one here at Puget Sound, anyone across the VA can use them. They're actually published nationally in a repository. They can be modified to kind of fit the needs of folks. Pico was one that San Francisco looked at and later Las Vegas looked at. And I just learned that recently. Las Vegas is actually one of the first sites to get a Pico wireless headset on the VA network. They're not there yet, though. They took my ERA, they modified it a little. They went through and they got their SDIA VLAN. Again, SDIA stands for Specialized Device Isolation Architecture. I'm going to be throwing acronyms at you. I apologize. But this is just how it goes. You set up the VLAN. Again, it's a firewall within the firewall. You can get your headset on it. They had to go one step further and do something called a POAM, another acronym. The POAM is a plan of action and milestone. It's actually permission to do a thing that the VA doesn't really approve of, but as long as you can show that you're making strides to get something up to the VA level of security, you can do it. And POAM only lasts a year. So the VA Vegas is going to have this Pico wireless headset for a year. They're going to actually run some third-party software called Waya Health, and that just relates to more rec therapy. But they're going to be doing that rec therapy for our patients with a VA headset on the VA side of the house. HTM, I mentioned, another acronym, Health Technology Management. That's our biomed group. I was really interested to learn that, oh, this didn't really go through IT. When I called down to VA Vegas, they said, here, talk to the HTM guy that spearheaded this project. Got to talk to him and find out, well, yeah, this was, how do you define a VR headset at the VA? Is it a medical device? Are you using it for medical things, or is it just a specialized device? There's this gray area where, well, they could fall to the IT support side of the house, or it could fall to the biomed HTM side of the house. In Vegas, it fell to the HTM folks. The reverb I mentioned, I got to play with third-party software called Medical Holodeck. Folks can look that up. That is the ability to look at DICOM files in the virtual space. So the X Labs folks were interested in seeing that. Hey, that's a new technology. How can we look? And I'm sure everyone on this call is probably more interested in that. Look it up. Look up Medical Holodeck. Really cool technology. Again, yes, they work on Oculus. They work on a lot of other headsets, but they work on Reverb too. I could install Medical Holodeck on my specialized VA PC that my HP Reverb was tethered to, and I was able to run the software, query my packs, pull a DICOM image file, test DICOM image file. We're not in prime time yet. Test DICOM image VA patient file, and actually look at that DICOM image in the virtual space. We played with Blender too. Dr. Ryan mentioned about some homemade software they did. Blender's off-the-shelf software that the VA has approved us to use, where you can actually segment a 3D object. You can pull apart a 3D object, look at the different parts in the virtual space. Blender offers a VR plugin, so you can run Blender in a virtual world. And here I mentioned, yes, darn it, the Reverb ends soon. Microsoft, they got out of it because the Reverb has to be tethered to a PC. Well, nobody wants that. They don't want a cord hanging off of them, and they don't want to have to get a PC that has enough video card power, enough RAM, processing power. No. All the headsets are all in one nowadays. You go buy your Oculus and you can do everything on that. You don't need it to connect to a PC to use it. So Microsoft, they got wise to this and they got out of the game. Also, we looked at the HoloLens. I don't know if everyone knows the HoloLens. That is an augmented reality. The Reverb is virtual reality. The augmented reality, now we can actually see the room around us, but the virtual objects, they appear in space in front of us. That we were really interested in because that runs a Windows operating system on it. It's like a tablet. It actually runs Windows 10. I think they call it Windows 10 mixed reality or something like that, or Windows 10 holographic, I think it was called. And on the HoloLens, again, only on our Sandbox network, we got to look at things like Materialize Mimics Viewer and demo that. A nice free viewer from the Microsoft Store on the HoloLens is If 3D Viewer. Great tool for looking at 3D objects on the HoloLens. Did we ever get the HoloLens to connect to the VA network? No, but it had the most promise on it because you can treat a HoloLens just like another PC. You could join it to Active Directory, and that's the direction we saw it going. If we could join it to Active Directory, we can actually baseline this thing. There's a way to push policies on the HoloLens so it meets those VA standards for things like encryption and what the users can do and what they can't do, what they can access. We had a region team that we went to called the Enterprise Mobility Group. They started looking at how to connect a smart card reader to the one USB port on the HoloLens so that we could actually log into the thing after it got connected to Active Directory. That was about 2-3 years ago. And unfortunately, the HoloLens, well, they stopped making it. Microsoft's going to stop supporting it. There's going to be some version that the Army's going to use, but the ones that we were looking at, the HoloLens that we were looking at using, we had the version 2. The version 3 is just not going to come out. It's a dead end. During all of this, I did get to create an internal website and play with some open source software called A-Frame, all one word. You can Google it. It's open source. It uses Node.js and another thing called, I think it was NPM. I use that for 3D viewing with my VR and VA systems, where we could very easily pull up 3D objects for viewing on this website that I created, using the free A-Frame software, which did have, like I said, Node.js and NPM approved in the VA. So where are we going in the future? You know, right when the Apple Vision Pro came out is right when they started cutting budgets, and it was getting harder and harder to buy things. You know how we are in the government today. We have not gotten to look at an Apple Vision Pro yet, or an Oculus 4. That is rumored to come out in 2026. The one thing I'm interested in is, will it offer FIPS? That's FIPS 140-2 I mentioned. That's the level of encryption that the VA wants us to be at for Wi-Fi. Smart glasses. I think that's the way of the future. And I'm sure everyone listening on this call knows that, you know, do you want to wear something clunky, or do you want to wear a pair of glasses that are going to give you the same augmented reality 3D experience? You know, those smart glasses, I don't know if folks know this, they have to be tethered to a phone. They don't have enough computing power on them to just be standalone. So all the computing power happens on the phone. Well, here at the VA, we have iPhones. And yes, they do sell smart glasses that connect to iPhone. There's my connection. There's my way to touch the VA network. If I could get some smart glasses that can tether to my VA iPhone. Apple glasses are coming out soon. So we're going to be looking to test those. X-Real have been around for a while. They kind of started the smart glasses. They can connect to iPhone or Android. One of the things that the group was looking at was a heads-up display for VA providers. They don't want a VA provider to have a patient sitting in front of them, talk about how they're treating them, and turn to their computer, click, 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 type up, you know, some look up something in their record in our EHR GUI, and then have to turn back to the patient. With smart glasses, they could have that screen up in front of them. It could be a much better face-to-face experience with their patients. Smart glasses, they were looking at to do that, because the smart glasses, I'm going to talk about on the next screen. What do they offer for a VR experience today? There's a thing called degrees of freedom. But before I get to that, I threw this little bit in here, some more acronyms, terms. The VA Active Directory is actually partially on MS Cloud. We have in-house servers that give us our Active Directory, but we are in the cloud. And again, I was looking at that for, oh gosh, you know, the HoloLens. I could probably get this thing in the Microsoft Cloud that we are in. It's not called Azure anymore. It's now called Intra ID. Don't know why Microsoft decided to change the name, but we could use that. We could use a thing called Intune for connecting to Active Directory. Maybe we don't need to have a smart card reader plugged into the USB port on that HoloLens. There's a thing called MDM, which you can actually use on iPhones to push policy. I mentioned that term baseline. You could push settings to a headset. They can use MDM to baseline a HoloLens. Again, unfortunately, that kind of withered on the vine. The VA today is looking at a thing called ADFS, and that's just more ways for us to authenticate using our Active Directory credentials to cloud resources. And actually, now that I've mentioned cloud, there is also the ability to do VR meetings in the cloud. A lot of different vendors offer that. They say, use our product. You can put on your headset, get on the internet, go meet in the cloud. Fred and I looked at that a couple of years ago, because remember, that was one of the things that XLab said was, how the heck can we do, you know, meetings on VR and look at 3D objects? But the VA, hey, with cloud solutions come certain VA policies. One of the big ones is something called FedRAMP. That's one word. You can Google it. FedRAMP is a level of security that a cloud provider meets, where the VA says, yes, we will use your cloud storage, use your cloud space, maybe to do a VR meeting, but FedRAMP takes money and it takes a long time to get that approval. The VA has its own marketplace where we can look at cloud solutions. It's called Software as a Service, SaaS, another acronym, where we could submit and say, hey, there's a vendor that's trying to sell us a cloud meeting space, and we want to use that. We can go through the marketplace and get the solution approved. But wait, Scott, you went and got it approved. How are you going to connect that VR headset to the network and get up and use it? You're still having to use MiFi devices and guest networks at the VA to get to that cloud, and that's where the ISSOs show up and knock on the door and go, hey, what are you guys doing there? Why aren't you on the VA side of the house? How come you're over there on guest network and MiFi? Believe me, they're pushing. The VA Immersive folks would tell you that they do eventually want folks using VR for anything to only do that through the VA side of the house. But unfortunately today we're not there yet. So I mentioned degrees of freedom on smart glasses. Again, my audience, I don't know if folks know about what degrees of freedom are. It's just basically your experience in a VR setting. A lot of smart glasses will say they have 3 DOF or 6 DOF. 3 DOF is just a screen that appears in front of you. You can't walk around it. You can't see it from the bottom, from the side, from the top. But 6 degrees of freedom, now you can start to do that. You can have an experience like you're walking through a room, right? You can look down at the floor. You can look up. You can look at an object that was in front of you. You could spin it around and look at the other side of it, look at the top, look at the bottom, walk around it. This is where smart glasses are striving to do better, to actually meet that same level that a HoloLens offers you for AR. They're not there yet, but I think I mentioned this in my future slide. I think this is where I'm definitely going to be watching when smart glasses come out, where they say, hey, this is just like the typical AR experience that you would expect. And if it tethers to an iPhone, then I think I'm going to push maybe Dr. Ripley to buy me one so I can play with it. Buy Fred and I one so we can play with it. So anyway, there's my slide about degrees of freedom. Kind of interesting to look at, to look at that term and look at, that's the end of my, thank you for letting us speak.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone, all our presenters and all of our attendees. We reached the end of the hour, so we are going to have to stop for questions now, but please reach out to us through RSNA SIG. We can get in touch with any of these speakers if you have questions in the future. And I think we'll be able to share all of this content, and just an excellent round of applause again to everybody. Thank you so much. Hope everyone has a great Tuesday.